All right, you ready? So I was about 23 years old. I just kind of finished up my undergraduate degree, and at this age and stage of your life, typically most people are pretty healthy and pretty carefree about their health, but that wasn't the case with me. I lost like 30 pounds. I was having heart palpitations, digestive issues. Every time I ate, it felt like I was digesting glass. And so I had been going to the doctor for about 6 months. I was getting every test under the sun and they just couldn't figure it out. You know, when you're younger, you typically start having like white starches, just kind of like ginger ale to make your stomach feel better. So I was visiting my wife, but she was my girlfriend at the time in Chicago. She was living there and I was flying from Pittsburgh to Chicago, and on the plane, the white starches I were eating were gluten-full pretzels. I was just eating a bag of pretzels and I had a second bag and my stomach just was swelling up. Looked like I was pregnant. I couldn't breathe. My stomach was just really, really swollen. I landed and I went and saw my wife, and we were supposed to actually meet up with a buddy from college that night. And I called him and I was telling him, I'm like, man, I'm not gonna be able to come out and meet with you. I actually might have to go to the hospital. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. My stomach's really swollen. I can't breathe. Been going to the doctor for about 6 months. I was getting blood tests, all kinds of invasive tests. They're testing me pretty much for everything. They couldn't figure out what was wrong, but I kept for a long time, and just all the paperwork from the different doctor visits I had a couple times a month, and it was pretty thick. It was like as thick as an encyclopedia, just the stack of papers of doctor's notes or tests that I was prescribed. And as we were trying to piece this puzzle together, it was confusing, and that is one of the challenges. Celiac disease, gluten intolerance, these issues, they have 300 different symptoms and they're different for each and every person. And so my diagnosis process, although it was a journey, it wasn't unique. We have people come through the tasting room each and every week that kind of explain a similar story. So it was definitely a long journey to get there, but started feeling much better once cut gluten out of my diet. After figuring out with my doctor that, you know, I had an issue with gluten, my good friend from high school, Doug, he had been celiac since the age of 5, and I knew he was gluten-free, and we were both living in Pittsburgh at the time. So I started talking to him. His wife had recently opened up a gluten-free grocery store, and they're really, you know, it was a really big help. They're helping me transition to the diet. Everyone knows you get rid of pasta or pizza or whatever, but at that time there still is now a lot of hidden gluten in sauces and marinades, and so they're really showing me the ropes. How do you go out to eat? What questions do you ask the server? But we did get to beer, and you know, that definitely left a little bit to be desired. At the time there were 2 or 3 options. They were all brewed with sorghum. They had just a weird aftertaste to them, and they just didn't really taste like the beers I had remembered when I'd studied abroad or started exploring and experimenting with craft beer after I graduated college. And, you know, I was kind of explaining to Doug, I know this is what you've drank your whole life, but this is just not going to cut it for the rest of our lives. So I've been gluten-free now for the better part of a decade, and it has changed a lot. These kind of diets are a lot more better known at this point. And that can be a little bit of a double-edged sword, somewhat of the Dr. Oz phenomenon. More people know about it, but then at the same time, there might be some people that are gluten-free and it maybe don't medically need to be. And so sometimes servers may or may not take you as seriously. But generally, I think the awareness is increasing, and I think that just makes it so much easier for people that have to follow a restricted diet. So we started Aurochs really out of personal necessity, but we shortly realized that we weren't alone. There were a lot of other people in a similar boat, had to follow a restricted diet, had to follow a gluten-free lifestyle. One of the best parts about our job and why we're so happy that we started this company is that it really helps just deliver that sense of normalcy in just some aspect in someone's life who has had to give up so much or is so restricted or has to think about where they're going to eat or how they're going to travel, and just has to just put so much thought into each and every decision they make in their daily life. So if we can just restore a little bit of that normalcy back in social situations and just allow people to enjoy a great tasting beer, that's what keeps us going.